Wednesday, I think afternoon for most of you that are here with us. I know we've got people joining us from the Pacific Coast, East Coast, and we're really just so delighted that you would take some of your time to come and hang out with us and learn a little bit more about Duratec Primers and hopefully get some information, maybe some inspiration, and absolutely any answers to questions that you might have. So we'll go ahead and get started. One thing I do want to point out that I tend to forget, if you're not familiar with using Zoom, one of the functions that we have, and we hope that you will use it, is to be able to ask questions. Down towards the bottom, I believe the bottom of your screen, is a little Q&A box. It has like a little chat, kind of chat icons there, or question icons there. You are welcome as we're talking to put your questions in there. We will answer them through the webinar where they kind of fit into what we're talking about. And then we also always save, at the end of our webinars, we always save dedicated time to answer questions as well. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Allison, if you'll just power us forward on the screen and we'll get moving. If you and I have not yet met, or you haven't attended one of our webinars before, my name is Shelly Benyon. I am the General Manager for Hawkeye Industries. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Hawkeye Industries. I'm going to introduce you to our team, and then we're going to get moving through the information regarding Duratec Primers. So Hawkeye Industries has been in business for almost 40 years. We're celebrating our anniversary this year in the fall. We are immensely proud of the long-standing history that we have in the composites industry, our distribution partners, our end-use customers, and the ways in which we get to serve and support both from the fabrication side to the distribution side to the builders to the artists, kind of every facet of composites. You can see down there below with our icons that there isn't a market or an industry segment in the composites world that we don't interface with in some way, shape, or form. And we love it. We love so much about it, some of which you'll hear about today. Duratec is one of our products. We also have the hardworking and economical Aquabuff compounds and polishes. We also have our EPS-friendly Styrosafe resin, and we'll talk kind of around those today. We might mention them. So if you hear a product that we're not featuring because it's not a primer, don't worry, we're going to share with you how to find all of the resources so that you can get more information about that or connect with us. So today on the call, there's going to be 3 of us joining you, but behind the scenes, I just wanted to introduce our resources. We have our amazing customer service team, Jennifer, Sue, and Brandy. They're not on the call with us today, but they are the team that answers all of your calls. If you're a partner of ours or a customer of ours and you call in, they are the rock. They are our foundation. They're amazing. So if you need a technical data sheet, if you are an international customer and you need support with shipping and logistics, they are amazing. They're phenomenal. So make sure you connect to and reach out with them. Also behind the scenes, I mentioned her name already, is Allison. She's our content marketing specialist. Allison puts all of the brilliant finishing touches on our work so that we can help you put all of the brilliant finishing touches on your work. And she's the one who put together the presentation today and is working behind the scenes to make sure things go smoothly. Joining me on the call today are my fellow regional sales managers and technical experts. So I'm going to jump to the East Coast first. If you are located in one of the South Central or Southeastern states, Rob Smothers is your regional sales manager. Hi, Rob.
Afternoon, everybody.
And we'll have contact information up for all of us at the very end, so you don't have to memorize our names, and you don't have to hurriedly write down any information. We'll make sure you've got that. Jumping over to the West Coast, if you are in one of the Western Canadian provinces or Western United States, Jody Wise is your direct contact. Hi, Jody.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Hope you have a pleasant afternoon here with us.
If you happen to be located in the Midwest or the Eastern Canadian provinces or United States, I'm here to help you, and I'm here to answer any questions. So the three of us are going to collectively talk about Duratec primers. We're going to share some of our insights and information. And our conversation doesn't end here. So just know, oh, hold on one second. Just know that if you have additional questions, if something we said sparked an idea for you, the conversation should continue after this webinar. Jody, Rob, and I, the best part, hands down, of our job is being able to connect with you, whether that's physically being there in your facility and helping hands-on with a project, whether that's talking through something that you've got going on or trying to troubleshoot. We love to connect and we love to support you. So we're absolutely here for that. So that being said, let's jump into what we're here to talk about today. So our webinar is on Duratec primers. In addition to the primer line up, we have putties, sealers, top coats, accessory items. So we may reference those as we're kind of talking throughout this. There's plenty of information on our website about those products. We have webinars continually throughout the year. So please join us again and learn about those other products as well. But we're going to start with kind of the broad strokes, some basic information that will help you as you're trying to better understand our product line and determine what material might be the right choice for you. So we're going to start with a couple of broad strokes. The first one being, what are the chemistries? So when you're thinking about what products you need, and when we're talking with you about what product to choose, one of the questions or one of the statements that you'll hear us say is that your outcome, your desired outcome, what you want from your finished product, whether we're making a part, whether we're building a plug, whatever it might be, what do you need from that? And we'll walk backwards from that to kind of determine what the right choice is. And one of those characteristics or factors that we consider is this: chemistries, polyester versus vinyl ester. So there are some key differences when we're working with polyester primers and when we're working with vinyl ester primers. And we'll talk specifically about each of our products in our lineup, but generally speaking, these are some of the features for why you would choose one chemistry over another, or one chemistry product line versus another. So we do have options for our products in both. And like I said, a little bit depends on what it is that you're doing and what features or benefits you really need from it. So polyesters might be easier to sand if you're doing a one-off part from a plug and you're never going to touch that plug again. It's a specialty item that you're creating for a customer. You may want to consider lower cost, and you're open molding, so you don't have any temperatures or post curing to worry about. Then you may opt for a polyester. You can high build that right up and finish your plug, make your part, and call it done. If you're, on the other hand, perhaps working with epoxy and it has a high temp post-cure schedule, you would want to consider vinyl ester. So these are some of the factors, just broadly speaking, that we discuss when we're talking about primers, or evaluate when we're talking about primers. The second piece or second factor that we want to consider or make sure that we have communicated is the type. So Allison, if you'd bop over to the next slide. We characterize our primers into three different types: high build, sanding, and surface. The good news, kind of twofold good news. The good news is all of our products are very clearly labeled as to which type they are. The product name itself will say right in it, high build, sanding, surface, etc. The other part of that is that the names are pretty indicative of what it is that they do. So we'll talk through some of the nuances between those as we discuss the specific products themselves. But in general, a high build is going to be the choice that you might lean towards. A vinyl ester or polyester high build primer. Again, there's those two chemistries. So a high build is going to be very easy to sand and to shape. It might be your go-to if you're doing any kind of CNC machining. It's not going to be as structurally sound. So you're going to want to take that into consideration if you're doing something that that is a dependent or a key factor for you. Sanding in the middle is going to build to a more medium build. So if we're on the high build side and we can go all the way up to 180 mils, sanding brings us down to about 30 or 40 mils. So if you've got a surface that needs, some good attention or amendments done to it, that sanding primer is going to fit right there. It's also going to be easier to sand, and it will probably save you a little bit of time and labor and sanding equipment. Surface primer matches the surface profile of whatever you're working with, whatever your substrate is. So if your surface is pretty darn is shaped really well, maybe your foam or your tooling board was CNC'd beforehand and you just need to coat it, surface primer is going to be the choice that you go to. So those are some of just the breakdown characteristics as to how we group or lump our primers themselves. So we're going to talk about each of our different types, kind of breaking those down even more and sharing with you specific product numbers. The webinar is being recorded. You don't have to take heavy notes. All of this information is available on our website, but we'll go through some of the finer points of each of these. So I'm going to pass this over to Jody. Jody, will you tell us a little bit about the high build primer? I think to you, Jody. Yes?
Yes, not a problem. Hope everybody can hear me well. What we've got here are two highest build products. As Shelley said, there's a polyester version and a vinyl ester version. They perform similarly in how they're applied and used, but the performance of each is a little bit different. Again, the vinyl ester is just a step up in physical properties. If you need a higher heat distortion temperature, if you know the part is going to be abused a little bit more, if it's going to be used underwater, that's where you might use the vinyl ester version. The polyester version will cover just about everything else. They are interchangeable. If you only have one and the vinyl ester version is it will do everything the polyester does. That's not a problem. And the polyester does most everything that the vinyl ester does. Just if you need those few specific higher physical property ratings, that's why you would go with it. But in general use, these can be sprayed on to 125 thousandths or so. There's no real limit as to how many coats you can put on there and sand it or machine it off. It can be CNC'd. A lot of customers, if they're making a large tool, 26-foot boat hull or something like that, they can come in and spray this onto a rough shape and do that first thing in the morning, and after break come back and use a longboard with some 40 grit sandpaper on it and take all the texture off and fair that surface so that it's pretty darn good. Now it's still sanded to a coarse grit paper, but our other primers are designed to go right over the top of that and hide all those scratches. So now within less than a day, you've gone from a rough shape to something that more resembles that 26-foot boat hull that you want to build. So that's where these can be used. Again, they're easy to use, they're easy to sand, they don't make a good mold surface themselves. Even if you were to use it one-off, I mean, you can get by with it, but the mold surface isn't going to be good, the release isn't going to be good. They're not designed for that sort of use. They're designed for another primer to be used over the top of them. So just be cautioned there. Don't expect to get 3 or 4 pulls off of it if this is the surface you're using. Our primers are designed more for that type of purpose, and then to top coats for long-term use. So that covers these two products.
Rob, will you take us? Jody kind of led a wonderful way right into, we've built up high with the high build primers, we've covered any kind of surface inadequacies, or we have a surface that doesn't really need that same high build. Will you talk us through sanding primers?
Yep, we've got two very good sanding primers. Most people are more familiar with the 707-061, which we call our easy sand. You can high build this up with multiple passes, get it up to 40, 50, even 60 mils at times. This is mainly to go over plugs, especially if you have a lot of bond lines that you're trying to hide. If you got highs and lows and you need to build up, and you're going to be basically manually sanding this down because it will sand very easy. Depending on how you spray this, and if you can lay it down very well, you can come back and probably start with 220 or 320 sandpaper and not really grind it up that much. You don't have to do 80 or 150, but you can sand it, smooth it out, and bottom line, you're getting this prep for the next coat, which would be more of a surface primer.
Mm-hmm.
These two are relatively the same, and you can see they come in multiple colors. We've got people that'll buy it in black, we've got gray, and we've got white. Those are the three primary colors it's sold in. Both of these will be run because they're both polyesters with 2% catalyst with an MEK P925, which is what it's tested with and designed with. And the 707007 gray sanding primer. Really, the only difference between the two is this one's going to be a little bit harder to sand. It's got a little bit higher solids level in it. The fillers package that's in there is just slightly different. So if you're looking for something that's just going to give you that harder finish, that would be the difference between the two, why you would look at the 007 versus the 06 one.
Mm-hmm. And capping that off, kind of getting even.
Yep, we go right into, like we said, with the secondary coat. That would be the 707002 would be if you're doing, let's say, an open molding, where your temperature. Sorry. Where your open molding would go down to, you're going to keep it between 150 and 200 degree temperature. You can stay with the 707002 gray surface primer. That's the polyester. If you're going to be doing one where you want a much harder finish on your surface, you want a higher gloss finish on your surface, or if you know once you build this part, when you go to build the mold on this, that your temperatures are going to exceed that 200 degree. Or if you're doing a repair, let's say you're doing a repair on the side of a hull and this boat is going to be below the water line, you're going to get very good blister resistance with the 1799006. So that would be the reason why you would choose one versus the other.
Thank you, Rob. So one of the things I want to touch on, and I'm as usual, nobody on my team is going to be surprised that I'm taking us off script for a second, but one of the things that I'd like us to just take a minute and explain is when we're talking about something that is quick curing. Jody, how does that resonate for you in comparison to what else is out there in the marketplace?
Our products cure tack-free on the surface within an hour or so, typically in a shop. So it means you can get on that surface and start sanding it or doing whatever it is you need to do to it within an hour or so. You don't need to wait till the next day. You can, like I said earlier, a lot of times you can spray it, go to lunch, go to break, whatever it is, clean your equipment, come back, and it's almost ready to sand at that point. By the time you get everything going, if sanding's the next step, it's just about ready to sand. You don't have to wait around for a long period of time. So you've reduced the labor, the man hours in the job significantly, and the total elapsed time for completing the job.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to pause on that. I know we put that up on the screen, and sometimes in our world, because we're working within air cure chemistry world and our material does dry tack free without any kind of additive, it's easy for us to forget what that might mean or how that might play out in actuality for our customers. So all of our products have very descriptive technical data sheets. We'll show you where to find those at the very end of the webinar, but included in that are instructions or certainly the gel time window, but then also instructions for, how to lay up, how best to lay up, and when to start sanding on it, so that you can kind of get an idea. Temperature, ambient temperature can play into that a little bit, but so that you can get an idea of what that quick curing might look like in your specific shop or with your specific customers. So, all right, thanks for letting me jump off of that. I wanted to jump back to you, Jody, to just talk about, we have some specialty primers. And I realized this morning that we've left one off of there, which I'm hoping that you'll notice and maybe jump into. But will you talk us If not, I'll tell you which one it is. But will you?
I'm
It's
working
your.
off my phone, so the screen
Oh,
is small.
okay. Well, it's your most recent pet project. That's the one that
Oh,
we left off of there. So
okay.
if you'll walk us through the specialty primers, and then we can touch base on that one, and we'll make sure everybody gets the details on that as well.
Well, in reality, that is the first one, probably, the 034.
I was thinking of the 614-070.
Oh, that one too. It's the products that kind of go hand in hand for the same application in general, just slightly different use. Yes, this is and the first one on the list here, the 1794-034, that is the white. On my list here, it's white. I'm reading the can on the board there, and I can't know that's 1799, so that's gray. This product was developed recently or perfected for in mold application for use for epoxy compatible projects, where instead of just a clear or something else, now you've got an in mold coating that's epoxy compatible, very easy to use in mold. Our other products can be used in mold also, but this one is designed for that, so it is easier to use. Some of the things with our product when you use them in mold in this application is you don't need to spray it as thick as gel coat, so you can reduce weight and cost. And frequently on an epoxy part, weight is a big concern. They're made out of epoxy and frequently carbon to reduce the weight and increase the strength as much as possible. So if you need a thick coating on there, you're just adding unneeded weight. So you can spray these much thinner than a normal gel coat type product. Some of our customers spray it down 6 to 8 mils. That takes a little bit of technique, but 8 to 10 mils isn't a problem. And now you've got a lightweight sandable coating for in mold use. And since we are talking about in mold use on these products, I'll just jump right over to the sister product, which is the white top coat vinyl ester that is designed for exterior use, whether it be a hull or a deck or anything part that goes outside, automotive, doesn't matter, planter boxes. If you're making them out of carbon fiber and epoxy, you're good to go. And so that is a white. It can be had in other colors too. There's a minimum order quantity, but it is available. And we can match just about any color that you can match in gel coat, uses similar equipment, but in mold and very easy to use. Now, as we move on to the 707-098, I believe that's the one on there. I'm trying to see it because I'm sitting in my car and looking at this. Yes, it is. All right.
Jody's on the road to see customers, so.
Yes, I'm on the road to see customers, and so I stopped at a hot food and liquor store in their parking lot. If anybody's interested for a pickup order, little DoorDash here.
Just another service that Hawkeye provides.
Yeah. So anyways, this is the gray fast cure primer, and this is designed for in mold use also. It's the polyester version. Again, the vinyl ester version, you're going to have better physical properties. If you need to post-cure a part, the vinyl esters are going to go to 300 degrees F. If you don't need to post-cure the part and you don't need those additional or added physical properties, the polyester version is just fine. It'll go to 200 F. And it's at a lower cost. So there you go. You've got one of those options too. Now these can be post-applied. There's nothing that keeps them from being post-applied. So you can use them in many different ways. It's just we tweak the formula a little bit so that they're easier to use in mold than the other products. The 707-019, the StyroShield primer. This specialty primer, it's for use with EPS and XPS foam. It doesn't eat the foam. It's easy to use. The only thing you don't want to do is puddle it, but people apply it in many different ways. You can spray it. That gives you the most uniform coverage, but people roll it, brush it, pour it, however you can get it on there. You just don't want it to puddle anywhere. Try and apply it as evenly as you can. And if that means applying multiple coats, but it's an easy to sand product. So you can cut your rough shape out of any type of EPS or XPS foam and shape it how you want and apply this to the surface. It can be rough cut and apply this, or you can have a nice smooth surface and apply this. It is sandable once you've got a film of this on the surface, and it needs to be thick enough. You can't apply it, one brush stroke and expect to cover it with a product that will attack the foam, but it will form a barrier. Once you get to about 20 mils, it'll form a complete barrier, and you can go over the top of it with any other product you want, whether it's a paint, whether it's two-part automotive paint or polyester resin. Everything can go over the top of it after it's been shaped. So for tooling and plug building, there are customers that build very large parts out of foam, cut them, and we're talking huge deck and hull molds, and then coat it with this. Sometimes they roll it, sometimes they spray it, just depends on the situation, and then coat it with come back and put a laminate over the top so it's structurally strong enough. You don't need to put a laminate over if you are only going to make one part and you know that part's going to be destroyed. This product can be used standalone as the mold shape. Just you're not going to be able to stand on it. You're not going to be able to abuse it much, and it will destruct depending on the shape of the part. Don't expect to build a 16-foot hull mold for a one-off and then use it 3 times. Probably not going to happen. But try
it and let us know.
Yeah, try it and let us know. Now, the Duratec quick leveling top coat. This product it's got multiple uses, and the more it's on the market and the more people understand it, the more uses there are. It's not designed as particularly as a primer, but it can be used that way because it's designed to hide a lot of surface texture and get a fairly decent high gloss surface. In a lot of cases, you make a mold right off of it or lightly sand it, polish it, and have a mold surface on it in kind of a one-step operation. It's not going to level as well as our traditional top coats because it is a higher viscosity and it's designed to fill and hide a lot of surface texture. But really, for a one-step operation, it could, in a lot of uses, it could fill in that need. And especially in a lot of industrial parts, if you just need a shape, you can just spray this on a really rough shape and improve that surface dramatically and get a mold surface off of it.
We have a lot of customers using it on kind of like the B side. And we're going to talk about it, but kind of using it to create a better aesthetic without really having to spend a lot of time or multiple products to do so.
And that's what it was really originally designed for. But again, it works really well in a lot of ways because it cures tack free with a pretty darn good gloss. So you don't need to do much work to it to make it look good. A lot of high-end marine applications or things like that will use this in the holds or the fish boxes.
Yeah, it's got great chemical resistance. Yeah,
chemical resistance and water resistance. I've got samples in my hot tub that have been there for about 4 years, and my hot tub is more of an experimental zone. Maybe a petri dish, I'm not sure, depending on what's in there. But the samples in there have shown very little color change because I've got some deep reds and deep blues and whites and then post-applied material. And there's really no surface degradation after 4 years in my hot tub. So they're holding up great. So that's the durability of the product.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you, Jody. So if you're sitting here with us and you're like, that's great, I've learned a little bit about these products in a very quick, short amount of time, and yet I still need to know how to do X with X, or I still want to know which product to choose for this. We're going to go through now kind of from an application perspective. And I'd like to give a couple of kind of caveats before we get started. And that is that we're going to make recommendations. These are kind of our top picks. But as I said before, outcome determines choice. So it can be a little bit of choose your own adventure, or that you're talking to us and together we choose the right product. So don't hold firm and fast to this. These are our top choices. They're top picks for a reason, but explore with us. Which kind of leads into the second one, which is if you're using something different, if you're using one of our other primers and we're making a recommendation or a top pick, and your the primer of your choice is not listed, do not be alarmed. There are nuances to each of these. There is flexibility and versatility to our products. And so if you're using something else and it's not listed on these next screens, that's not a cause for alarm. Most likely we had a conversation with you, or your distribution sales rep had a conversation with you and walked you down that choice journey to find the right product for your desired outcome. So having said that, these are our top picks for plugs. We've got our 707-061, which is our easy sanding primer, our 707-002, which is our gray surface primer, 707-007, which is the gray sanding primer, and then the vinyl ester option, which is the 1799-006. Again, based on what you need and in terms of performance out of the plug or pattern, you're going to make a choice for that primer based off of some of those variables. So if this is a plug or a pattern that's going to see repeated use, or it's going to, sit around for a long period of time, you may choose one over another, depending on that factor. If it, for some reason, is going to see high temps, or if it's made out of EPS foam, you're going to make a primer choice based off of those factors and those characteristics. So we're going to, when we're working with you and when you're looking at the products, you're going to consider what the long-term needs or benefits or features are that you need out of that piece, that part, that piece, that plug, whatever it might be, so that you can backtrack to that. So those are the top choices for plugs. If you're doing any kind of CNC plug or pattern work, then we'd suggest using one of the high build primers, either the 707-051, which is the polyester option, or the 1799-052, which is the vinyl ester option. So we can see in our picture here, and I just point this out because this is a beautiful shiny pattern. It also has one of our top coats on it. So our high build primers do not shine up this beautifully. So I don't want you to see this and then wonder why yours isn't getting the same kind of gloss level. This is a CNC milled pattern with our base primer 707-051 on it, and then a top coat above it. But both of these products are incredibly easy to work with. So whether you're CNC milling or machining, or whether you are handcrafting, Jody mentioned before the StyroShield primer with EPS foam. And I have a customer who put StyroShield primer on their EPS foam and then a base primer, and they're an artist. And so they're creating art installations, and they work and shape and fine tune and pick and chisel the base primer to essentially get the shape that they want. So they've got this lightweight, low cost decorative element that they can then really artistically fine tune. So whether it's CNC or whether it's some other kind of like I said, some other kind of milling, these products are the options for that. Next up,
and I just like, excuse me for a second, before we change this, I'd just like to say one thing. And if we get any phone calls on this product or any alerts, and we may refer to this later, but I wanted to make sure we got it in now before we forget about it, is the first time you open this can of material, you're going to go, what did I just buy and how old is it? Because the surface is going to look like the can is solid, and you're going to say, this stuff is old, it's no good, I got to take it back. Don't panic, get something to stir it with, use a paint shaker, something like that. It will, once you stir everything back into solution, it will be nice, easy to spray product. It's not the thick, pasty thing you see when you, yeah. I mean, sometimes people say they, the stir stick will stand up in the can. You can't get the stir stick in the can when you first open it sometimes. But that's just because of the lightweight, easy to sand ingredients in it tend to float to the surface. So that's what you're seeing. Blended in, it will be a nice, creamy, low viscosity product that's relatively easy to spray and levels and flows pretty darn good compared to what you initially saw in the can. So don't panic.
I'm so glad you said that, Jody, because that's one of those topics that the three of us, we're always like, oh, we want to make sure we've said this. And I don't actually think we noted to say it again. So I'm glad you brought it up. Yep. Don't be alarmed. And if you're feeling alarmed, call us and we'll help assuage your fears. All right. Next up are our top picks for molds and patterns. So in this picture, we actually have, oh, it's not you, Jody. I thought we had one with you in here. In this picture, we have one of our customers is working with their swimming pool mold and they are resurfacing it. And so they've got on there a tooling gel coat, and then they're backing it up with 1799-006. And so if you are repairing or constructing a mold, again, there's going to be a difference between whether we advocate for a polyester or a vinyl ester. The temperatures, the longevity, the durability, the physical properties, what is it that you need from that mold surface? And so what primer is going to best support that? The polyester is, by and large our kind of go-to. It covers the surface. Both of them cover the surface, are going to complement and perform well. Both of them will stand alone if you want to use those as like a medium gloss surface to tool right off of. If you want high gloss or if you want extreme durability, you're going to make sure to add a top coat to that, but both of them are able to tool right off of. Jody, Rob, am I missing anything from those two?
This pool mold, I was there with the customer when we did this, and I'm the one that took the picture, so I couldn't be in it too. But anyhow, what they did, they extensively modified this mold, and then sanded the entire thing, put the vinyl ester primer over it, sanded that with 120 grit on DA sanders, and then went over the top of it with our vinyl ester red or vinyl ester orange or red. Yeah, sometimes I'm confused because the colors aren't that much different. And everybody's reds and oranges are different. So we went over the top of it with that. This finish is what is right out of the gun. That gloss is how it cures. Sometimes that's a good enough mold surface, and you can just polish that up if you want, or just wax it as it is. In this case, we sanded it further and polished the surface, but that's how it levels and flows right out of the gun over the top of the primer.
Thank you. And that is one question we get often, which is, will your primer stand alone as a mold surface? Can you tool right off of it? And our answer is often, it depends which primer, because like we said before, we're not going to advocate that with the high build primers. But the 707-002 and 1799-006, the vinyl ester or polyester surface primers, are excellent standalones or companions to the high gloss top coats, like we've mentioned. All right. Marine construction. This is where we will generally be very specific with you, because anytime that we're working with you below the water line, we want to make sure that your laminate is really protected. So 1799-052 is our go-to fairing primer. Some people have even referred to it as a fairing putty, kind of sprayable putty. Because it's that high build and it's such an easy product to work with and work down and fair out. But the 1799-052 is going to build up over that laminate. It's going to allow you to smooth and, like Jody said earlier, to longboard that down very easily. And then oftentimes, and you can certainly check out our marine construction webinar that we did, or you can look over our marine construction application guide. But by and large, the $17.99 052 is then getting a secondary layer of vinyl ester primer, the surface primer, for the ultimate osmosis resistance and blister resistance, and then top coated with whatever the, whatever the spec or the customer calls for, whether that's a paint or anti-fouling or a gel coat. So that's our top pick below the waterline. We do feel very protective about those laminates and want you to have the vinyl ester resistance down below the waterline. We've seen an uptick in automotive restoration. We're in the conversations we're having about restoration. This happens to be one of our customers' cars that was displayed at SEMA. And we get a lot of phone calls specifically from folks restoring Corvettes. This is not a Corvette, but from the Corvette restoration group. And they are incredibly passionate about the way in which they restore and the art and the craft that goes into those restorations. And $17.99 006, which now you've heard a few times, our vinyl ester primer is a fantastic option for that. It will work really well with whatever substrates are on that are part of that car. So if you're working on the hood and you've got some sort of metals, or if you've got other kinds of fillers or body fillers or automotive paints, and you've sanded and kind of tried to grind all of those out, and there's still some, the vinyl ester plays very well in terms of adhering to whatever might be on that surface. And then you can put on a 12 to 20 mils, kind of work that down, get your surface right. And then it's a very versatile primer in terms of what comes next. So in terms of top coating, whether it's your automotive paint, your urethane coating, or whether you're doing something else. The customer who did this particular vehicle, he obviously worked with some automotive coatings, and then he also top coated his car with our sun shield, which is one of our top coats as well. So if you're helping a customer, or you are a customer wanting to do some automotive restoration, that's our top pick for that application. We mentioned this before. This is our quick leveling top coat. It's the 2-for-1. It's the product that we have on here that doesn't have the word primer in its name, because it does kind of that dual function. We have customers who use this on the backside of water slides, like Jody and Rob mentioned before. We have customers who use this in bilge or stowage areas on boats and in marine applications, because it's chemically resistant and osmosis resistant. So this is the top coat, the 2-in-1 kind of primer and top coat that you can take the rough side, backside bead laminate and really give it a different aesthetic and kind of bring that to a nice, shiny, glossy finish without having to spend a lot of time or additional materials in building that up. So if you've got a B-side finish project and you don't want just the laminate to be showing, this is an excellent choice for you. And the last kind of application is just kind of the general all around, like if you came to us and said, Hawkeye team, I need one primer in my shop, just one. What primer should I have? We're still going to have the conversation with you about chemistry. That, again, going back to the very beginning, we're going to talk about what characteristics and features you really need out of the performance of that primer. So there's two options here. One's polyester, one's vinyl ester. If you're going to pick one, that's one of those is going to be your choice to have in your shop. They are go-tos, they are workhorses, they are highly compatible, very versatile with both from the substrate and whatever secondary or post-paint application or post-paint choice you might be making in your application. They are our number ones of the polyester and the vinyl ester world. Those are our top picks for general use. All right, the Hawkeye team has done a lot of talking. We're good at it. We love our products. We're very passionate about what we manufacture and how we can help you. So we're going to go through our top 5 frequently asked questions, and then we do have some questions that have come in, so we'll answer those as well. This is a perfect time that if you've got something on your mind and you'd like us to answer it, to pop that in, and we'll answer this along with this. But question number 1 is coming to you, Rob. Catalyst do you recommend and ratio?
Well, the catalyst that we recommend, depending on what you're using, like I said earlier, all our products, whether they're vinyl ester or polyester, they're all tested with the MEKP 925. On our vinyl esters, they're tested with the MEKP 925H. We chose the MEKP 925 line because what that does, majority of our products are going to build up to 20 plus thickness. We want to make sure that you're not only getting a good gel time, but that's going to drive the cure through all the way, because these are products that you're going to want to get on. You're going to want to sand either to a high shine or to a full cure before you add any other top coats or any type of gel coat over the top of them. So the reason we went with the 925H on the vinyl esters tend to have a higher thickness in their viscosities. And so the H is, what that means is that 925 has a lower hydrogen content, which will help minimize the gassing on that product as it's going through its gel and cure stage. We also recommend that you run this at 2%. That's to make sure we've got enough catalyst in there that's going to help drive the cure. A lot of times when we get phone calls saying, hey, we did this an hour ago, it's still tacky, it's still gummy, it's not curing all the way, we find that you guys or people out there have lowered the catalyst level, trying to extend their time to get it out of the gun and get it sprayed. So there's little tricks to that. We've got a product called Gel X. It's an extender for gel times that you can put in there. And if you're just trying to add a few minutes to it, another recommendation is just take that material before you spray it and cool it down a little bit. Get it down to about 70, 75 degrees. If the shop's at 90 degrees or so, your molds are at 90 degrees, it doesn't matter. What matters is the temperature that you've got in that small pot that you're spraying to get it out of that gun before it has time to gel. So if you cool it down a little bit, it'll spray fine and it'll extend your time. It'll give you that 4 or 5 extra minutes that you may need to get that small can sprayed and to be able to clean that pot before things start to kick off. But we always recommend that 2% because no matter what, we want to make sure you're going to get that full cure on that product.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we chose that catalyst specifically.
And Rob, down there in Florida, those few extra minutes can mean a lot.
It does.
little hot and humid. Thank you, Rob. Jody, I know just by looking at our participant list, I know that there are a couple of you on here that have asked this question and know the answer to this question. But Jody, 904001, can we use it? That's our high gloss additive for those that aren't familiar with that number. It's our high gloss additive. Can we use the high gloss additive with the primers?
Yes, and it along with all of our other products, virtually everything we make is chemically compatible. They play well with each other, so mixing and matching, except for our StyroSafe primer, is pretty darn safe. If you want a color, a viscosity, a certain feature, and it works better for you blended together, that's great. Go ahead and blend them together. There's people that use our high gloss top coats with primer added to reduce the gloss to a mid-level that they can control. Adding the clear additive, the 904-001, reduces the viscosity of the primer, makes it spray and flow better and level, so there's less sanding. But the slight trade-off is that it isn't going to sand quite as easy because you've just added more resins to it. So you don't have to add much to knock the viscosity down. So it's not like there's a huge difference in how it sands. It's just that you can use it and it'll work well in that application. It will also add a higher gloss to your finished part. If you're going to make several parts off of this, you're going to make 5, but maybe we'll make 10 if we can stretch it that far off this plug. or to mold, whatever you're making, and you want a little bit longer lasting gloss or a tougher surface, adding the 904-001 will do that for you. So, you know, it's seasoned to taste. There's no right or wrong ratio, but really you don't need much. If you go 5 or 10%, you'll see a big difference and in how it sprays and levels and flows. And some people love to do it that way.
Thank you, Jody. All right, Rob, to you, when do we sand? When do we start our sanding?
Once you know that you've got a complete cure on that product. That's why we went back and discussed the catalyst to make sure that we're going to initiate a complete cure. So there's little tricks. People do the fingernail test where they'll push it in to see how hard that material is. Mainly, most of our products within 2 to 4 hours, you can get right back on it and start sanding. You know, you'll know if you've done this before. If you're gumming up the sandpaper, you need to wait a little bit. You may have to, if it's wintertime, you may have to apply a little bit of heat to help drive that cure through. But usually within 2 to 4 hours, all our products, you can get back on it, sand it. Some of them, 60 minutes, we've gotten back on it and it's completely cured and ready to sand. So it's just a matter of, again, there's no right or wrong. There's no definitive time. It's once it's done, once you know it, you've got a good hard finish on there. And once you know you're not gumming up the sandpaper.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. This is one of our most popular questions that we get asked. Jody, are our primers epoxy compatible?
Yes. Again, almost virtually everything we make is epoxy compatible, both in mold and post applied. So it works well. In a liquid state, they don't play well together, but in a cured state, they do. So in mold, read the directions. If you're using it in mold with epoxy, spray it in the mold, let it cure tack free. You don't want it still sticky before you go over it. You want it to be cured, and then you can infuse or apply your epoxy to it, no problem. Post applying it, you want to make sure that the epoxy is fully cured. Clean it with soap and water to get the amine blush off. Sand the surface. It needs to be abraded. And then you can apply the products to the top of that. And our primers, top coats, everything can be used in this way.
Perfect. Thank you, Jody. And like Jody mentioned, our technical data sheets, which we'll show you in just a minute where to find those, they give you instructions, just like Jody did, for how to make the products work really well together with epoxy. All right. The last question that we have that is one of our most frequently asked questions is why to choose Duratec over the other options. And we know that you have other choices. We know there are other products out on the marketplace. And for us, we're obviously representatives of the company. We love what we do. We have the opportunity to work with and solve customer problems all of the time using our materials. For us, we want you to be happy and satisfied, and have your project turn out wonderfully. So, from our perspective, we have 40 years of building and formulating and tweaking and creating really adaptable, flexible, versatile products that, because of their air cure chemistry, because of their compatibility with other materials, because you can jump in and sand so early and efficiently, they save you time, they save you labor, they save you on additional materials like sandpaper if you don't have to burn through so much of it. We feel like, and our experience has taught us that they time over time outperform in dependability, in quality, the materials that are out there on the market. And we would welcome you to trial them. We're going to send you a link to this webinar after we're done, and you can request a sample. And the best way for you to believe us is to try it for yourself and see what that performance is like for yourself. So you'll get the chance to request a sample and try it for yourself. But we're all firm believers that when you've found the right product for you and you can use it consistently in your application, that it really shifts and changes the way that you can move and fabricate and operate. Jody, Rob, did I miss anything that you would want to add there?
I think you covered it.
No. Okay. We have one more question that we didn't get answered, but I'm going to answer it in our, so Allison, you can just go ahead and jump over to the resources. I'm going to answer it in our resources section. We're at 1 hour for our webinar. So I'll show you the resources, answer that last question, and then we'll let you guys go. And like I said, please reach out to us and keep talking to us. So Allison and our technical team worked over the course of the pandemic to revamp, revitalize, and really infuse all of our documents with as much information and education as possible. So on your screen, you're seeing 2 different documents. The document on the left is our technical data sheet for this specific product. They're the same visual for all of our products. It's going to have the product properties. It's going to have the key uses like we talked about today, the features, and then the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th pages are very clear, detailed application information and troubleshooting tips and tricks. So we've tried to give you everything you might want to know about this product or about these products in those technical data sheets. The page on the right of the screen of your screen where it says surfacing urethane tooling board, these are application guides. So on our website, we have both technical data sheets and application guides that might work you through multiple products, and that might take you from the very start where perhaps you're sealing a plug to the very finish where you're top coating it, buffing and polishing it. And so those are all found on our website and have all been updated to try to get you, the latest and the greatest information. And then of course, our team is always here at your disposal. We enjoy working with you. We love hearing what it is that you do. You guys are such creative folk, and you bring us such, you allow us to just intersect with you in such cool ways where you're doing the things and pushing the composites envelope in ways that just energize us and excite us. So please reach out to us. Here is our contact information. Jody is on the west, Rob is on the east, I'm in the middle. If you don't remember, that's okay. Reach out to any one of us and we'll make sure that you get connected with who's relatively local to you. Thank you guys again for joining us today. We're so grateful for your time and for your interest in our Duratec primers. Jody, Rob, any last thoughts before we let folks go?
Nope, I believe you covered it quite well.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you, Jody and Rob and Allison, for your help. Enjoy your day.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye now. Thanks, everybody.